Welcome to the Raise 'em Up podcast. I'm Heath Cole, and I'm flying solo today. We're going to be talking about the things that start at home. For the most part, I've focused a lot of my attention on podcasting and stuff through about kids that are in the 12 to 15-year-old range. Behaviors kind of set in by then. So when we look at raising kids up right through the younger years, and we start talking about what kind of needs to be looked at and focused on as parents, there's a little bit different set of answers. When you're correcting a problem, you have one set of circumstances, but if you're creating a circumstance where the world doesn't need to have a problem, then there's a little bit different one. And so one of the first things I want to talk about on that is that every family has a tendency to worship something. Now, when you talk to families, most of the time you'll get an answer somewhere in the neighborhood of, we worship God, or we worship Buddha, or whichever religious affiliation is a part of that family. And that's all fine and good. But what I'm talking about is, what do your kids see you focusing your time, effort, and energy on? An hour on Sunday mornings is one level of energy, but what do they see you doing the rest of the time of the week? For some, and I know some in my age bracket and gender range, it's sports. It's every kind of sport. It's from one season to the next. We go from baseball into football. We go from football into hockey. We go from hockey into basketball. We go from basketball right into baseball again. And so it's a constant cycle of sports and player statistics and those kinds of things. And we see somebody in our family that's their worship spot is sports. For other people, it's food. There's a lot of people that are very focused on the way they eat, whether it's vegan or vegetarian or gluten-free or, 5-star cuisine or, whatever the focus is. If all of the time, energy, and effort is placed on food and what we're going to do for food and how we're going to prepare food and what we are going to eat and what we aren't going to eat, that becomes a spot of worship for the family. There's others that worship work, and I probably fall into this category more than I'd like to admit, but there's those that spend just a gigantic amount of their time, effort, energy, focus on work. Emails on Saturday, emails on Sunday, emails at night, emails in the morning. That becomes a point of worship. And we all have to do what we have to do to make our career thrive, or to put ourselves in the best financial position possible. But can you put it down? Can you unplug? Can you stop for a minute and focus on something that has nothing to do with work? Can you disconnect and talk about something that's important to a kid? And while we don't sit around teaching, oftentimes we don't sit around teaching kids to worship something that's antithetical to what we care about. We oftentimes teach them to worship things that leave other people in their life kind of out of the equation, out of the mix. And that starts at home. I'm one that got into cooking for a while and watched a lot of cooking shows and things like that because I wanted to learn how to cook better. And I got to the point where I was involving the kids, and they were going with me to the store and buying food, and they were buying ingredients, and we were trying to figure out these recipes and stuff like that. That was all fine and good. That was a thing we did together. Oftentimes it's the stuff we exclude our kids from and then focus on without them that becomes kind of the sticking point for them. I don't know how many times I've sat across from my kid, they just kept talking about how they weren't important because this person in their life, a parent, was so focused on this other thing. It could even be another dysfunctional sibling. I know a lot of kids that are struggling because their parents spend so much time and effort on the kid that's not doing well in the family. They end up worshiping the dysfunctional kid. And our kids develop these resentments or these frustrations around these things that we're so focused on that isn't them. No, I'm not saying we should be helicopter parents that only focus on the child. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is every child feels like there's something in their life, something in their parents' life that they get ignored for. And it's okay to have that conversation. It's okay to talk about that. But furthermore, it's okay to dial it back a little bit. It's okay to acknowledge as a parent that you're too focused on something and that you made a mistake in being that focused and that you want to draw back a little bit. And it's okay to have that conversation and apologize to your kid. What's the worst thing that can happen? They can say, oh, thank you. You're right. But as parents, do we want our kids to be laser focused on that one thing in their life, or do we want them to be a little bit balanced as well? I know I don't do well with passive relaxation. My parents were fairly workaholic-ish, and I picked that up, and I've tried to include my kids in work at times, and a lot of time, and that becomes a focus, and it's something I have to be aware of and conscious of, but I don't really know how to relax. And that's something that came from growing up in a house that never really engaged in being able to relax well or to disconnect from work. We lived where we worked when I was a kid. And so it just became a way of life. And so if we are going to teach our kids something different, then we have to start by giving ourselves permission and room to be different. We have to give ourselves an opportunity to disconnect from that thing that we are so into, and be able to say, you know what, I'm going to put my phone down. I'm going to put my email down. I'm going to put my cookbook down. I'm going to put the remote down, and I'm just going to deal with you. That can really change a kid's life if a parent is willing to say, you know what, I'm into this, but I'm going to structure my life so that I have an adequate amount of time, both for the things that I love to do and for this child that I love. The kids will actually learn how to do that for themselves too. And they will then in turn grow up to be a little bit more balanced. And generationally, if we can make the generation that's with us now, better than our generation, and we can be better than the generation before us, in 2 or 3, 4 generations, you end up with a significantly better parenting experience because every generation chose to get better at it. And the first step in getting better as a parent is to say, well, what am I worshiping? What am I dedicating so much of my time to? And what do I want? If I want to have a better relationship with my child, do I dedicate my time, focus, and energy to my relationship with that child? Or are they kind of a passenger on this speeding runaway bus that I'm driving towards other things? Well, nobody really likes feeling like a passenger. So if you can really start to say, I'm going to focus on, this for a couple hours, and then I want to focus on this for an hour. Even if it's just meals together or a show that you watch together that the kid picks. One thing I particularly like is when parents say to a child, I'm going to just dedicate 20 to 30 minutes a week for you, and you can pick what we talk about. I will answer questions. If you're not sure, I will suggest topics. But it's going to be your time. And that time becomes sacred, and that becomes something that kids really benefit from. And we all have busy lives and we all get sidetracked and all that stuff, but making that commitment to once a week, saying, I'm going to sit with you and where I'm going to focus, and I'm going to not bring my phone with me. I'm not going to sit and do other things. I'm going to just focus on you and the relationship between you and me. That can have significant positive outcomes for your child and for you. You might actually find that you get to know them a little bit, and that you like them. And what kid really wouldn't benefit from having a better relationship with their parents and feeling like that parent really cared and liked them? You can do that free of charge, but that starts at home, and it starts when they're young, and it starts with you being dedicated to building that relationship. So be careful what you worship and make sure that your kids fit into that scheme somewhere. We'll be back in next week with another episode. Thank you very much for joining us.